Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the open letter to Objectivists, Make Objectivism Great Again, from Lindsay Perigo. This will be one video, part one, and we'll do several more videos talking about this open letter. But since I've seen that many Objectivists don't have my same context reference, let's say, instead of bombarding you with opinions that you might not understand where I get these opinions, what my information comes from, where my opinions have developed, I'm going to read a few questions that I've jotted down regarding the open letter. So the first question regards the opening quote from Ayn Rand that Lindsay has put here. So my question is, how did the old internationalist doctrines differ or resemble today's globalism, so-called? Why was Ayn Rand defending nationalism then, but ARI isn't today? So just to quote, just a tiny little bit of that quote, Ayn Rand says, "They smeared all opponents of internationalist doctrines as reactionaries, fascists, and blah, 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 blah." So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, Lindsay attacks Yaron Brook. This open letter was supposed to be his opening statement in a debate with Yaron regarding immigration. Now, as you can tell from the title, Make Objectivism Great Again, this is regarding Trump as well. Now, Yaron Brook has called Trump all kinds of names. The villain of our time. Ankar Gate said he's paving the way towards dictatorship. Now, first thing Lindsay notes is that in 2013, Leonard Peikoff had actually realized the problems with open immigration, especially the Hispanics from south of the border. Now, the context here was an immigration bill, Republican immigration bill that would supposedly diminish the number of immigrants and tackle illegal immigration and so forth. So against open immigration, let's say. Now, a tiny little quote from this. "You are talking about a bill that will infuse into this country a massive amount of Democratic supporters and thereby guarantee the destruction of this country." So, one of my comments here is that Leonard Peikoff here is actually recognizing what Ed Powell in his immigration essay has as well. In other words, the incompatibility of democracy and open immigration. That was one of the four objections to open immigration in Ed Powell's essay, which you can find at objectivedissent.org or Objective Dissent something. Anyway, Lindsay attacks organized objectivism or Obleftivism. In other words, objectivism hijacked by Islamo-Marxism. What does that mean, right? A lot of words there. Organized objectivism means, the ARI and other objectivist organizations. And my question is, what did Ayn Rand think about organized intellectual pursuits? What did she think the what did you think the objectivist intellectuals would look like in the future? I pose that question to you because I don't want to answer that for you. I want you to go and look for Ayn Rand's thoughts on that. Now, something a little, disturbing. Can't quite understand why Yaron has called the Dakota and Keystone pipelines, which have been accepted by Trump. Obama wanted to block those. Yaron said, no big deal, no big deal. is it really no big deal that the Dakota and Keystone pipelines have been are going to be constructed? Is it no big deal? Really? We get all our oil from the Middle East, and now actually, thanks to fracking, hydraulic fracturing, in the United States, there's calculated to be more oil reserves than in Saudi Arabia. So that seems like a pretty important topic, a pretty important piece of information, but Yaron says no big deal. So anyway, let's go a little forward with this. Very important thing here in Lindsay's essay. He says, Obleftivism seems blind to the cultural ravages of unfettered immigration by ideological aliens. Ideological aliens. Isn't that an interesting way of putting it? I think that's a very good term to refer to culturally incompatible groups or people, individuals. So, what groups can we consider ideological aliens? That's one of my questions. Now, another interesting point. He says, build a wall along the northern border as well. Now that's funny. I mean, it's supposed to be a joke, or maybe a joke, half a joke. But what he's doing is he's applying the principle of keeping ideological aliens out, not just to third worlders or whatever, but also to countries like Canada, which are very leftist. So that shows you the moral framework from which Lindsay is reasoning and what Yaron and the others are reasoning from, which is sort of the Harry Binswanger's position of open borders, because the government has no right to screen for immigrants. Now, another very important point in this open letter, that Lindsay says that Western culture is the best. That's the first point. And that it's entitled to protect and preserve itself qua Western culture. That means Western culture as Western culture has the right to preserve itself. And Western culture is manifested in a plentitude of Western nations. That's a very interesting word, nations. So Western society, Western culture is formed by separate Western nations, and we have a right to preserve ourselves qua Western nations. So that's a very important point. It has a lot of underlying premises, a lot of consequences if you take this approach. So, my question was, what does preserving Western nations qua Western nations actually mean? That's my question to you. Now, another point. Why do Obleftivists oppose people such as Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, which have been ferociously silenced by the New Left, by the social justice crowd, by the Black Lives Matter crowd, by all the new California people, California syndrome leftists? Why? Why is objectivism so indifferent to these people on the right? Sure, they're not objectivists, but still, they're being silenced. If you care about free speech so much, why aren't you saying anything about this? Why are you calling Milo a nihilist or something like that? I don't know if, Lindsay only says that Yaron Brook derides Milo. But I remember for one of Yaron's podcasts, he said something like along the lines that Milo was sort of a nihilist in his manner of approaching things. Now, Yaron also minimizes the enormity of the Muslim threat. How exactly does he propose to differentiate between everyday Muslims, peaceful Muslims, and so-called radicalized Muslims? My question, I would add, how can you defend our countries from second and third generation immigrants, which are, have citizenship and everything, but they get radicalized more than their parents and grandparents. You can actually look at the data on this. You see, that's why I said at the beginning of the video, the context of reference. You need to look these things up. You need to see what happens second, third generation. In France, for example, they've had, Algerian immigrants, Muslim immigrants, 2 or 3 generations ago, and their grandchildren are actually more radicalized than their grandparents. So that's a very important question. And I would, Ed Maslish, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Ed Maslish, I'm sorry. You'll let me know how you pronounce his name. But anyway, Ed has good stuff on this. He is for ideological screening before you enter the country. Now, here's the usual comments on, Yaron is in a gated community while he's advocating all of this. And I would add that in in Amy Peikoff's interview with Yaron, or discussion with Yaron actually said he was against ideological screening within gated communities, private communities. They shouldn't be able to screen for ideology or something along those lines. Now, I think that is a topic we should discuss. It's not so obvious, to me at least, it's not so obvious that you're not able to, you don't have the right to screen for ideology. I don't want radical jihadis in my home. I'm not going to invite them in my home. And what if I have a private community, right? Why can't I say no to these people? Anyway, I see that we're already at 12 minutes, so I'm going to stop right here for now. To end this video, I would like to say, first of all, stay tuned, because there's a lot more to say about this open letter, and we are going to go back on Ed Powell's essay, absolutely, very important essay on immigration. And I would just like to say thank you for all the kind words that I've received from Objectivists, the dissident groups, all of us that are unsatisfied with ARI's positions on immigration especially, but there's a lot of other topics. That's why Lindsay Perigo calls them hijacked by Islamo-Marxism. That means hijacked by cultural Marxism. That's more, it has more to do with the culture rather than philosophy itself. And we'll get into what that means exactly. I have a lot to say about that. So thank you guys for your support. Please remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click a like. A like goes a long way. It shows me that you're appreciating what I do, and it also makes our conversations more visible. So thank you. I'll see you soon, and make Objectivism great again.